With Chapter 11, we're going to be looking at the direct interaction between our bodies and the different microbes that we're going to be exposed to throughout our lifetime. Now, keep in mind, you become colonized, well, not only since birth, when you got a lot of, but new research is showing even prenatal. There are certain bacteria, certain microbes that are able to ascend the vagina, pass through the cervix, even though there's going to be that mucus plug. They're able to get into the uterus and are able to cross the placenta, cross the embryonic sac, get into where the developing embryo is. Now, they're not pathogens per se. There are pathogens that can do that, STDs and things that mom may be exposed to. But there are also microbes, bacteria that are part of mom's normal flora that are going to be there. Majority of the normal flora you're going to get exposed to will be during birth, passage through the cervix, through the vagina, out the birth canal, and whatever may be there, labia, and then whatever's on doctor. And for those of you who haven't actually been in a birthing room during a birth, haven't been there, actually watched it in person, it is a very messy process. For some women, there's going to be some fecal discharge, which is going to add in fecal coliforms that the baby's going to be exposed to. However, the baby's going to be exposed. These microbes are going to become part of what is referred to as the microbiome. You'll hear me refer to it as the normal flora. Different generation. When I was an undergrad, the microbiology textbooks and the scientists referred to it as normal flora. Nowadays, modern textbooks, they are segueing from the use of normal flora to the term microbiome. Basically, it's the sum total of all microbes in you, on you. Bacterial, fungal, protozoan, yeast, whatever. What we see is that the colonization, infection, disease, all of this is a continuum, okay? Colonization doesn't happen in and of itself. Infection doesn't happen in and of itself. The disease doesn't happen in and of itself. To get a disease, you have to have an infection. To get an infection, you have to have colonization. Right now, as you sit there, if you're in perfect health, no infections, nothing going on, you are covered head to toe and everything, or everywhere in between, with bacteria, fungi, yeast, arthropodic, microbes, extremely small microscopic insects. All of these are referred to as your resident microbes. They're there with you every day. Now, the resident microbes are going to be different person to person. No two people sleep in the same bed, eat the same food, drink the same water, have the same levels of stress, all this type of hormones, all these things. Your resident microbes are going to change. It's been shown for women. Your resident microbes on your skin, in your gastrointestinal tract, in your genital urinary tract are going to change based on where you are in your monthly cycle. You're also going to have transient microbes. You're touching stuff throughout the day. You're being touched by things. You touched a doorknob to open the door to get in and out of your dorm room, your bedroom. You petted your dog. You shook somebody's hand. You gave somebody a kiss. All those physical interactions, and even ones that aren't physical, you got hit by a gust of wind when you stepped out, or you open the window. In the wind is going to be dust. On the dust particles is going to be bacterial cells, bacterial endospores, fungal endospores. These are things that get on you for a short period of time. They call these transient. Here today, gone tomorrow. Because of all your resident microbes, the billions and billions and trillions of bacterial cells, fungal cells that make up your resident microbes, they're taking up all the space. They're taking up all the space. They're taking up all the nutrients, all the water. So when the transients get there, they're outnumbered. Think about it. If you went to a big university, it's football Saturday. You know, for me, I remember this great example was, going to Neyland Stadium, University of Tennessee, Knoxville. 80,000 fans. 80,000 UT fans. And then there's just me in my University of Michigan sweatshirt. I'm the transient. I'm outnumbered. Anything I do, it's 80,000 to 1. What am I going to do? I'm either going to sit there and keep my mouth shut during the UT game, or I'm going to get up and leave. Well, for transient microbes, they're outnumbered. Could be outnumbered, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions to 1. Chances are they're going to get overwhelmed. They're going to be deprived. They're going to die. If the transient gets there and is able to establish itself, maybe even get into, an open wound, maybe somehow get into the gastrointestinal tract and establish itself, you now may have the beginnings of an infection. As we're going to see in this chapter, an infection, just because you have a bacteria in your body doesn't mean you have an infection. The bacteria has to not only get in your body, but it has to be able to survive. It has to begin dividing to be considered an infection. And if you have an infection, if it gets to a certain point where you start to have symptoms, it starts to actually cause damage to you, now you have a disease. Hence, above my head here where it says a continuum. So when you think about it from a microscopic standpoint, your body is nothing more than literally a giant buffet at the cellular level. To microbes, it's nothing more than food and water. That's what you are. Some of the microbes have to bust open the cell to get at the food and water, but for all intents and purposes, just the waste products your cells give off, the fluids that surround your cells and your tissues, is more than enough for microbes. Our microbiota is good. We want it there. Okay? The microbiota is doing us good, whether it's a mutualism, a commensal, the fact that they're there is good. Some of them may not even be doing anything that helps us, aids us in any way. They're just there in your large intestine. But what we're now finding out is that what bacteria you have, the health of the bacteria, the broad number of species, which species you have in your large intestine, can affect your overall health. They're starting to see that there may be a correlation between the health of your gut bacteria and your neural health, your gut bacteria, cardiac health, your immune health. For what we've found is from studying rats, that's kind of interesting, studying rats. Many, many decades ago, they took pregnant rat, C-section, removed the baby rats directly from that. So at no point in time did they go through the birth canal. They weren't colonized. No microbiome to begin with. They were taken out and they were put into sterile cages. They were fed sterile food, given sterile water. At no point in time were microbes introduced into their diet, into their environment. They were kept in true sterile conditions. Those rats didn't do well. They had some developmental issues. They had some neurological issues, dietary issues. We have to keep in mind that we humans, we Homo sapiens, Homo neanderthal, we hominids, we animals have spent the past 100 million years plus evolving in the presence of microbes. We need them, depending how you look at it, we may need them more than they need us. So, how do you get them? How do you get your microbiome, your normal flora? Well, as I talked about in utero, they're starting to show, when I was an undergrad, when I was, in the 80s, when I was going through junior high, high school, in the 90s when I was an undergrad, we were taught that the embryonic fluid, everything within the embryonic sac, was sterile. We fetally developed in a sterile environment. Well, we're finding out not quite so sterile. Number of microbes there is quite low, but they are there. Definitely during birth canal, during feeding, whether you're being breastfed or bottle fed. Breastfed, whatever bacteria, microbes are on the nipple, they're on the breast. The baby's going to be touching. The baby's going to be ingesting. If you're feeding with a bottle, using formula, the formula is not manufactured in a sterile plant. The water, most of the time, the water that parents use, they may start off buying distilled water and stuff like that to keep the baby healthy, but after a while, they're going to be using tap water. Every time you touch, you kiss, you hold the baby. Every time the baby touches something, they're picking up transient microbes that, given a chance, will become resident.